Hey guys, my name is Jeremy Harridath from Peace Home Lending, and this is the Broker Playbook on traveling. Uh, was reached out by AIME to talk about traveling and working remote, and I figured I'd give you guys some pointers on how to successfully go into traveling and working remote, and not just doing it, but doing it well, not missing not skipping a beat with your business. So wanted to go over just a few items on what would allow you to travel remote. So a few things. When it comes to working remote, you want to look at the motivation as to why you're going to be working remote. Is it to change your work environment? Is it to go spend a weekend with friends and family? Is it to just expand your mind, right? Go see different places, go across the seas. I know COVID has made it a little difficult to travel, especially to Europe. But as things open up, you want to be sort of prepared to make that trip and do it confidently. My recommendation is always take small steps first to get used to the idea of working remote. But I'll cover some pointers today on how you can do that successfully. Now, keep in mind, when you go to work remote, let's just say, I don't know what state you're in, but I'm in Northern Virginia. If you wanted to go to, let's say, Florida, right, and you want to take a trip, let's just say a week, there's a few things you want to keep in mind. When you decide to work remote or you want to travel and work remote, work ethic is very important. It's not a vacation. You would have to take the whole 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, holiday mentality and change it to, I have to do whatever it takes to get the job done. So that way I can take a break in between, work hard, play hard, right? So work ethic is very important. Make sure that you're willing to stay up till midnight if you have to, the night before a fun event that you want to do the next day. Make sure your work's covered in advance. So that way, when you do travel and work remote, you don't have vendors, realtors, clients, whoever it may be, waiting for you to get that task done. So work ethic is very important. It's a non-negotiable. Make sure you get your work done sooner than later and forecast what needs to be done. So that way you're not at an amusement park and then all of a sudden you have a closing blowing up and it was something that you could have prevented ahead of time, right? Knowledge, right? I understand if you're new and you want to go travel, but frankly, you have to cut your teeth, get good at whatever you're doing, have extensive knowledge of the mortgage industry, of guidelines, whatever it may be. Be comfortable with what you're doing. So that way, when you go and you are in an amusement park in Orlando, Florida, and the phone rings and it's a new client, you're not flustered. You're not answering the phone because you don't feel it's the appropriate time to pick up the phone. Goes to my other piece. Always pick up your phone. Make sure that if the phone rings and you are in an amusement park, gauge the noise around you. See what your environment looks like. If there's loud music or if you're in a concert, of course you can't pick it up, but you can send a text. Stop whatever you're doing, send a text. If you're at dinner with the missus or whatever it may be, my wife understands that if my phone rings when we're at dinner, I address it because the reason why we're there is because the reason I pick up my phone, so I'm able to go have dinner. And she understands that, and she understands that if I have to get up from a table and go take a call outside, she's not sitting there angry and flustered. She understands, right? So if you do travel with someone, very important. Always pick up your phone. Always pick up your phone. Simple enough. And if you can't, send a text message or address that call that's coming in. Don't let it sit and wait because that could be a lost opportunity. And again, if a realtor sends you a deal and there's a client on the other end and you can't address the client, you don't have to say, hey, I have to call you right now. Because even if you're on a phone with another client, you're not going to be able to take that client. However, you can call the client back or schedule whatever it may be. Hey, I'll be back at my computer in roughly 2 hours. Is it okay if I give you a call then? Whatever it may be, address it and then go from there. People skills. I feel like I shouldn't have to say people skills, but it's pretty important. When you're working remote, like even with COVID, everyone's sort of been working remote. But if something needs to be done, if title hasn't sent you a closing protection letter, or you haven't gotten a written verification from an employer and the transaction is pending that, be able to pick up the phone, articulate what's needed, and don't come across as an a-hole with it. If you are traveling and working remote, it's just because you're traveling doesn't mean it has to be an inconvenience for everyone else. You still have to do what you need to do it in the appropriate time frame, and be nice about it. So that way you can keep traveling and good things will keep happening, right? A big one, adequate finances. Don't go into debt traveling. It's stupid. If you can't pay for the trip or reasonably pay for the trip, don't go. Save up some money first and then go on your trip. Your trip will be much different than putting $5,000 or even $1,000 on a credit card and not being able to pay it off and then paying a stupid amount of interest on the back end. You're financial stewards, act like it, save up your money, go on a trip, enjoy it, come back and keep on with it. That's huge. Money set aside is, I'll leave that one there. So we talked about answering your phones. That's very important wherever you go, even if it's in Kenya and you're on a safari trip and your phone rings, pick it up, address it. I've taken many calls from an Uber in Panama, many calls, and I've had to tell the driver turn on the music. And I took new client calls. Of course, I'm not taking applications, but I had a 2-3 minute phone call, understood what the next steps were, and I followed up with the next steps, whether it was a follow-up phone call or a follow-up email. Take a call whenever you can. One thing I learned the hard way is when I traveled before, I had a 17-inch laptop. So I remember hiking through Tyrona Park in Colombia, and it was about a 2.5-hour trek, and I had a 17-inch laptop on my back the entire trip. I think it was like 7.5, 8 pounds. It was just awkward, just the way a laptop felt on my back, but I had to do it because that's where I had to go, and I had a laptop, and I walked with my laptop. I've learned since to get a smaller laptop. I have a 15-inch and a 13-inch laptop to allow me to not have something so big and bulky on my back. One of the first, hires or expenses that I took on when I was creating these was I hired an IT company. I outsource IT. Our computers are encrypted. I have, if something were to happen with IT, I have a phone number that I can call or an email that I can send and resolve any IT issues. That's across my team now, but I'm able to take that IT protection and travel a little bit more with some peace of mind, knowing that our computers are encrypted. So if, God forbid, a laptop is lost, which I hope never happens to any of you, no one can get in because it is encrypted. A MiFi, very important. So if you are driving, you're taking a road trip and you want to drive down to Atlanta. So there was a conference a few years ago, and I drove to Atlanta, to New Orleans, to Dallas, and I drove back. And I was a one-man shop when that was happening, and it was a 2-week trip, and I had a MiFi. So during the sessions, I had my MiFi out, and I was getting work done. Even though I was in a conference, my laptop was out, 13-inch, MiFi was on the table, and what a MiFi is, you can get one from Verizon, T-Mobile. I like Verizon because it's pretty good nationwide, but I also have a unlocked GSM, which would allow me to go anywhere in the world. Worldsim.com is a great tool. They're a little bit more on the expensive side, but you can have one SIM card, use that one SIM card, add money to it, and you can go anywhere in the country. I remember when I flew into Amsterdam and I was on the train getting to the Airbnb I was staying at. I had some issues with it, and I was like troubleshooting it on the train, and it got resolved. And that whole trip, I had Wi-Fi, no issues, had it on my portable Wi-Fi, worked like a charm. We actually have 2 now locally that we use for Verizon and T-Mobile, but that's just a SIM card. But again, we have it unlocked. I don't know what it's called. Yeah, I guess a MiFi that would allow us to connect Wi-Fi anywhere in the world. Very important. One thing to keep in mind: always look or Google what internet services are available wherever you travel. For example, once we went to Argentina, and even though I got a SIM card, I couldn't use it in the portable Wi-Fi, but I had another phone. So I was able to put that SIM card in the phone and then turn on a tethering line. So I was able to get Wi-Fi through tethering, even though I wouldn't have gotten it otherwise. Very important. I have, before I forget, I have T-Mobile as a cell phone service. And T-Mobile allows that if you're on Wi-Fi, it's as if you're in the country. And it's free Wi-Fi calling. So when I was in Panama, we had Wi-Fi in the house. And anytime I was connected to Wi-Fi, if you called me, you wouldn't get that weird beeping tone, like beep, beep. You get an actual ring. And when the phone rings, no one can tell that you're working internationally, which is phenomenal. And with the MiFi, if you're on Wi-Fi and my phone hits the Wi-Fi and it's a good signal, it shows T-Mobile on my phone, and I know, and I have the peace of mind that if someone calls me, they're not going to get this weird message on the receiving end. Does it happen where they reach out and they do get the receiving end because I'm in between places and I don't have a MiFi? It happens, sure. But I guess any reasonable person can understand the fact that you are not in front of your computer, and that once you reach out to them and service them in a manner that they'll be happy with at the end, I don't think anyone would care. One thing very important, when you start traveling remote, some IP addresses block international servers. With our IT company, I'm able to remote in. So I have a laptop always in Virginia that's turned on, and I'm able to remote into that laptop and work out of that laptop, even if I am in another country. So if I need to do something with one of our lenders, I can just remote into from my computer there using Wi-Fi, secured Wi-Fi, very important. And I think that's why I started talking about the MiFi. You don't want to use public Wi-Fi. And I'll go back to the laptop piece afterwards. But to drive the point, the reason I have a MiFi is you don't want to use any unsecured Wi-Fi. Like, you don't go to Starbucks now and use their Wi-Fi. Don't do it internationally. Don't do it when you're traveling. Don't use any Wi-Fi that you don't know. Use your own Wi-Fi, and it reduces any risk of someone using that same Wi-Fi and then hacking into your computer. If you have a laptop, you have a good secure network, you remote into your computer that's in your home area, you're able to go in and do business as usual without any foreign IT restrictions. And the biggest one, work first and then go play. Very important. It's normally you think, or what we're ingrained to think is if we go to Florida or Amsterdam or Argentina, Buenos Aires, Panama, wherever it may be, wherever you want to go in the world, that as soon as you get there, it's party time, it's checkout time. If anything, I'm busier when I'm traveling. If I ever feel my pipeline's getting slim, I go traveling because the pipeline fills back up, and then I come back home. Seriously, it's a matter of work first, then play, because the play feels so much better once you've tackled your list. You can go do fun things. Here's some fun things before I go on to some others. You're able to just read your favorite book. I don't know if you have self-improvement books or whatever type of books that you like to read, if any, but you can go read a book on a deserted island if you wanted. You can have great steak, great wine, great ice cream in Buenos Aires and not Amsterdam, Argentina. And if you never went to Buenos Aires, Argentina, highly recommend you go. Highly recommend you get the steak, wine, and ice cream. It's fabulous. Doesn't matter where you go. Trust me, you'll enjoy it. Strolling through Amsterdam, and after you're done with your stroll, stopping in a Michelin restaurant and sitting down for a tasting and enjoying it. It's amazing. One thing I wanted to do when I was traveling was come face to face with a wild sloth, and I actually had the opportunity to do so, where I found a fella crawling on the floor in the middle of a chocolate farm in Panama. Things to not do, because this is very important. Don't go into debt to travel. It's stupid. I don't again, you want to know your motivations for traveling. If it's just to impress others, don't do it. Get your money together, get your finances together. Once that's together, go travel, right? Traveling comes after you put yourself in a position where you feel like you can take 500,000, 5,000 and go traveling. Don't use public internet. I mentioned that before. It does put you at risk. If you can't take a call due to the environment, then make sure you reach back out to that person. And don't be an idiot. Don't screw it up for the rest. You're not a travel blogger. You're not a graphic designer. You're a steward of your client's finances. Remember that. Always have your client's interest in mind when you're having conversations. Who's around you? Don't be an idiot, please. Now, one very important thing when it comes to traveling, especially if you want to travel and like do fun things like take a 3-week road trip or work 3 weeks somewhere while you're touring the country. There are some challenges to that, and one big thing is stress, right? Just not being in your comfort of your home is stressful, and the idea of taking that type of trip and having logistical steps in between can be stressful. Everyone manages stress in their own way, and I'll share 2 stories with you on just stress and anxiety and trusting your gut. And one was the first trip that I ever took in the trusting of myself to work remote. And that's when I went to Florida. It was back in 2015. And I remember I packed my duffel bag. I didn't buy my ticket yet. I didn't do anything, but I packed my duffel bag and I said, I'm going on a trip, because sometimes you just feel the need to do and go. And it's a trusting piece more than anything else. And I remember I packed my bag. I went to the realtor's office because I was working at his office that day. And I looked at flights online. I looked at hotels, and I never pushed the button to buy the hotel or buy the ticket. And the day ended. And I remember I could have bought the flight and I didn't. And I chickened out. And I remember that night I went, no, I'm not going to chicken out. So I went online and I bought a ticket for that Saturday morning, come back Sunday night. And the flight was ridiculously expensive because, of course, that was more last minute than leaving on Friday. And I remember one night in the hotel, I spent $1,000 on that trip. And I felt like $1,000 for one night. It's like, what the hell am I doing? But I did it anyways. And one of the best decisions I ever made. I remember that was the beginning of more trips to come and the more trusting to come. And the next story that I have, it's a little bit of a weird one, and I'll be a little vulnerable talking about this, but I remember signing a lease down in Panama with me and my girlfriend at the time, now my wife. And we signed the lease. We went down there, super excited. I had some of my stuff being moved to Panama. And I remember it was before I actually went to Panama to stay for a long period of time. I think it was going to be like 3 weeks or a month. I forget how long. But the night before, I had a head to toe, I had an itchy rash. So weird. Never happened before in my life. And my whole body was itching, head to toe. No idea why. I was scared. It was like 11 o'clock at night, and I fly out early the next morning. And I'm thinking, do I go to the hospital? WTF do I do? Like, what the heck? And I remember I ended up falling asleep. Next day, woke up, nothing. It was all gone. And I think it was probably the stress, and this is what I mentioned before, the anticipation of traveling, the logistical steps was a bit stressful. But again, next day, woke up, I was fine, and I kept going. And one thing, and the reason I tell these stories is you have your stress levels, and it's very important that the business already is stressful. Everything we're doing with COVID is stressful. Have an outlet to manage your stress, figure out ways to just manage your stress overall. What you don't want to do is be stressful at home and then go travel and be stressed there. While traveling should be fun, if you work and do it, it is stressful, and it's something that you just want to anticipate and not go blindly inside traveling without figuring out what your stress levels can be. Like, do you schedule a massage at some point during your trip? What can you do to make your trip, even though it's a work-related trip, be fun? Just be creative. You know yourself better than anyone else. See what you can do to allow yourself to travel, work hard, play hard, and have fun in between. And I'll end with this. This was a post from an Instagram that I did back on February 28th, 2015. This post was the Saturday morning after I flew to Florida. A little bit cheesy. It's about 6 years ago. But it's gut decisions are never easy. Most of them bring fear that is not real. Life is what you make it. You have to live in fear or trust your ability and take a risk. Time is not on your side and is limited. Make wise decisions, not based on short-term consequences, but on the long-term benefits, no matter how hard the decision. Carpe diem, my friends. Thank you.